Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. This is Ashley Burton of Mastering Mind Matters. I'm so very excited this evening to have you all join us for our break room chat. So if you see this live on your page, go ahead and do us a solid like and share. Let me go ahead and follow my own advice. Give me 1 second, please. I just want to make sure that this is getting to as many people as possible. While I'm doing that, I do want to say good evening to our guest for this evening. I have with me Lisa L. Gilliam, aka One Singing Lady, and I think it is going to be a great conversation with her. So give me 1 second, make sure I share this to my personal page, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. That's not going to work. Um, so, June is Black Music Month, among other things, right? There's a lot happening in June. We just got finished celebrating Juneteenth for the first time as a federal holiday this weekend. And there are just a lot of things happening in June. But we want to make sure that we are acknowledging the different things in the different ways that mental health it can be and mental wellness can be prioritized. And so I thought, why not bring Lisa on to talk about specifically music and mental health? And so I'm grateful to have her on. Lisa and I met, I think maybe 5 years ago now, through a mutual friend. I know that's unbelievable, right? It's been 5 years. Wow. And so we have had the pleasure of getting to know each other as friends and as sisters. And Lisa has always been incredibly supportive of Mastering Mind Matters from its inception and has invited me to speak at events. And we have collaborated as facilitators on mental health, mental wellness groups. We're currently collaborating through the Stigma Breakers Collective, which has a monthly conversation every first Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And through that work, we are able to amplify the importance of mental health and mental wellness through using our personal testimonies, but also being equipped with clinical knowledge. Lisa has been is degreed in mental health. Is it mental health counseling, Lisa?
So when I was in school, it's called community counseling, but it's been changed to mental health. So you know how old I
am. She is degreed. She is also a licensed minister. And even while not working in that capacity currently, still is very much active in getting the word out about mental health and wellness, and also talking to others about the power of God and healing that can happen. And I think that she's able to do it so well because she's on her own healing journey as well. So, Lisa, I don't know if I gave an adequate enough introduction.
Hey, I don't have to introduce myself. You're good. Just go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else that you would like for that you would like for us to know about you that's important about you or important to you?
I think you did a phenomenal job. The one thing I would say is that I'm also passionate about integrating the arts in that process. So a lot of people just do, mental health, or they just do ministry, but I add either singing or poetry or writing, or even speaking, because that's communication arts, into the process. And so that's what, for me, makes it all worthwhile. That's
absolutely. All. Absolutely. So Lisa she is all about the arts. She has a beautiful singing voice. She's a recording artist. Yes. And a songwriter. And so we're actually going to talk a little bit about that today. Lisa, just so people kind of have a little bit of a background if they have not been if they're not aware of you, your background, your testimony, if you want to just kind of give a little bit of your background, why mental health, mental wellness is such a passionate topic for you, and why you feel like this is kind of like what you've been called to do.
Well, I will try to give the shortest version that I can. I share my testimony often, but when I was younger, I was sexually abused and molested. And then my freshman year in college, I was date raped. My grandmother finding her deceased 3 days before Christmas in 95. And then 2017, anybody that follows me knows that my mom passed. And so she, part of the process, she got ill pretty much. She was unconscious when I saw her. And then she died 2 weeks later, and I was in the room when she took her last breath. So all of that led to complex trauma over the years. And so I know what it's like to, at different times, because of the trauma I experienced, wanted to take my own life. I never tried or attempted, but I always had this empathic view on, just it's got to be something else, to this thing called feelings and emotions. And how can I support other people who were just like me when people weren't there to support me? And so it means a lot to, break the stigmas that are associated, with mental health and trauma, and know that a lot of times people who have received diagnosis is not because of something they did on their own. Sometimes it is, but as long as we continue to look at physical health as something different from mental health, I'm going to continue to advocate, because both of them are important. And illness is illness, sickness is sickness. And so if I can share, my own testimony in the process, and give somebody hope and encouragement to celebrate life, then that's what I want to do.
Absolutely. And this is me not smiling, of course, at the trauma that you've had to experience, but I am always just so proud of every time you are able to be strengthened to be able to share your testimony again, because people don't understand. Like, you can talk about things that have happened to you all day long and still not be able to do so without revisiting mentally all of the feelings that are associated with it. I think people kind of assume that, after you talk about it for a long time, you get numb to it. That's not always the case. And it depends on so many different things. It could depend on what you're going through at the moment, all of the contributing factors currently happening in your life. I mean, it could be a number of different things. And so always feel blessed when you are able to share your experience, because you sharing your experience can be something that helps someone else who may be going through something similar to say, oh man, like, I can make it through, or I can keep pushing to get healing, or I can be encouraged that, healing is not something that's simultaneous. It can be. We know that, we believe that as Christians, that God can heal in whatever way God decides to heal. But for most of us, healing is definitely a process that requires maintenance, right? It requires us not to get comfortable with where we are. So June is Music History Month, and I kind of want to hear about how you got into singing and songwriting, because, I mean, did it start after you started kind of experiencing the traumas? Like, is it something that you've always loved to do and you just kind of were able to integrate it into your healing process? How does that work?
So if my brother was on right now, he would say, she always did it. He literally would tell my mom.
You were one of those babies that when you were crying, you sounded like you were singing.
Oh, I don't know about that part, but I know as long as I was, I don't even know if I ever asked my mom, dad, and both of them deceased now, so I can't ask, but I would love to know the answer to that question, Ashely. But I remember when I was a child, like, my brother, I could just be in my room and he's in his room and I'm just singing and making up songs. And he would be like, Mom, can you please tell her to stop? Like, and it wasn't that I sounded bad. Actually, my brother got a solo. He probably was going to hurt me. He got a solo in the choir before I did. And then I was just like, I don't even like to sing, like, to myself. And so I don't know what I did. I started singing too. the Trouble Club Choir. And Miss Preston, I will never forget that. My brother and I did a duet to He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. And that I don't know if Daryl sung a solo since then, but you know, I think it just kind of developed from then. I was a poet and a writer first, so I remember writing short stories and poems when I was younger, and then as I grew, you know, older, I just would come up with melodies. I don't play, I pluck. And I make that be known. I wish I could play, but I mean, I know the keys, but they're not going to be the same keys to the song that I'm singing. So, right. But yeah, so I just kind of integrated together. And by the time I released, so my first CD was released in 2004, but I had written most of those songs in the 90s. And it just took that long for the release to actually happen. But I had been singing at, you know, engagements and ministry engagements and gigs, whatever you want to call them, for years before the CD actually came out. And my producer at the time, Detrick Edwards, he heard my spoken word and he was just like, you can sing, but this is what's going to get you. And my mom even said, she's like, Lisa, you know, you can sing, but you're a writer. And so, you know, finally I accepted that fact, because I can sing, but I have a lot of friends that can sing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thankful for the gift, but I'm also grateful because a lot of singers don't write, you know what I'm saying? Or at least to the ability that I've been able to kind of tap into my emotions and my feelings. So it kind of was a process, you know, started one way and then it kind of turned into something different. And that first CD, Past to Present, was cathartic for me. I was able to, everything that I just shared in my testimony, I was able to pretty much talk about on the CD. So it's not one where you're going to be like jamming the whole time. It's like deep. People say it's riding music. So
no, and I appreciate that. I have to admit, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with God because I always wanted to like be able to sing. Like I'm a singing in the background kind, like I can hold a note. But my brother, Brandon, phenomenal voice.
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you about Brandon because we didn't know Brandon could sing until he was a teenager. Because Brandon was always on the drums, right? So okay, typical pastor kids, right? Preacher kids. You know, got the boys and usually start on the drums, and then they might go to another instrument, maybe piano, maybe the guitar, something like that. So Brandon's progression was drums to keyboard. He just started tinkling. He's self-taught. And my parents, one poor parents, like they put him in drum lessons. He didn't want to learn like the basics of drumming, you know, like the stuff that you would teach, you know, that you would learn like if you were in a marching band and stuff like that, you know, rudiments and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. Brandon was like, okay, this is nice, that little tot-tot, TDT tot-tot thing. He was just like, no. And he, those drum lessons lasted like about 4 sessions. My dad was like, I'm not wasting my money. He's not ready. So he was like 7. So, you know, he just wanted the drum. So he progressed into started to tinkle around on the piano. And all of a sudden he started singing and all of us were like,
he can sing.
Where did it come from? And literally in high school, Brandon went from the drummer to having solos. Like his last year at Carroll, he was in between playing the drums and singing solos. Wow. Because all of a sudden everybody knew Brandon could sing. And I was like, really, Lord? Like, you can get you know, like I was.
You do a whole lot of other things well, though, Ashely. A whole lot of other things. Brandon really can't sing, though. You know.
Yeah, but I was just like, I'm right here, Lord. Like, you could have just gave that to me. But anyway, so like, I totally understand like having a sibling that, you know, the sibling that kind of has the musical gifting, and the other siblings like, oh my God, like this boy would not shut up, or this girl would not shut up, because Brandon, I was definitely like, okay, Brandon, this is too much. Like sometimes you just need to be quiet. But what I will say about Brandon is Brandon he always hit me to the best music, because he always knew, like he would listen to all types of music, and he's the reason why my musical palette is so diverse, as diverse as it is now, because Brandon could go from listening to classical to, I don't know, rock fusion, and he'd be like, yo, have you heard of such and such and the Monkees? And I'm like, nah, I'm over there. You know, so I appreciate that. So, I mean, I think that's really good to kind of give us a little bit of background. Like, you've been one who's kind of been singing, but apparently people appreciate your musical gifting as far as your vocal ability, but it sounds like people have really been pressing you to tap into your writing ability. So tell us a little bit about how that kind of progressed, as far as writing. Like, did you just kind of sit down to this off as like journaling, and then, you kind of turned it into, how did you develop your songwriting skills?
So most of the time it's just a melody that kind of drops in my spirit, or I'm gonna tell y'all inside. Like I've told some people this. I have a song on the first CD called "You Are My Friend, Lord." It's jazzy. I love it. Like I can hear it in my head, but um, that's pretty much, like I said, that's where it stopped. But I was in the bathroom when that melody came, and it's one of my favorite songs. And so wherever the inspiration comes from, I will write, and then it comes from that. I've written because of heartbreak, because although I'm known for gospel, I write all types of music and I sing all types of music, and I feel like this: if God is in me, then whatever He's giving me to be able to express, this can help other people in the process. You know what I mean? So, but that's just my take. Other people don't feel as kindly to be singing secular, but that's a whole other different story. So yeah, I usually just have a melody in my head and I'll write down, or sometimes a situation will happen and I'll write. I haven't written poetry like consistently in a really long time. And I think that's partly because of the trauma. You know what I mean? Just not really wanting or having the creative juices flowing. But I know when I'm not doing it, it definitely does affect me, whether I say it or not. And so I'm not one to just kind of write spur of the moment. It has to be something that's happening, or for a person. Like one of my friends at one point, she was like, "I want you to write a poem for my birthday." And I was just like, "I don't write just like that." And like within a couple of minutes, the poem was there. Like literally, she was in tears when I read it to her. And I'm just like, really? Like it really affects you that way? Because it's surprising sometimes to me that these words really matter to other people just as much as it does to me. So
yeah, I it's always interesting when people kind of pick up on a gifting or a talent that you have, that you may deem to be a little bit maybe secondary to the one that you really like. Like singing is my thing, Like I do songwriting, but singing is my thing. And people be like, yeah, that is your thing, but like songwriting is really your thing. And I feel like that's kind of how I am when people tell me that I have a gift for teaching. I'm like, I would much rather I would much rather be singing in the background, but then they're like, no, but you're a teacher, and I'd be like, okay, whatever.
But just combine it. I combine it too. When I was a classroom teacher, I would let the kids come up with songs like at the spur of the moment. So I was still using both gifts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I totally feel you. Totally feel you for that.
And there are ways to do those things, right? But one of the things that impacts our ability to see how to do those things is trauma, right? Mm-hmm. And so while we acknowledge that, things like listening to music and engaging in stuff like things like songwriting can help enhance our mental wellness, there are big barriers to getting ourselves even to a place where we're able to utilize those tools. Mm-hmm. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of insight into how you were able to engage in specifically like songwriting when you were dealing with the aftermath of certain traumas, how you were able to even get yourself to the point where you were able to write. Some people say, I can't even get to that point, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things for me. People are like, oh, journaling. Oh, God. I have a block to get to the journaling, right? Like I know the journaling is something good that I could do, but how do I get past the block to be able to utilize that tool?
I think the first part is just do it. Like I remember when my mom died, I committed myself to writing. I preached the same year that she died in June at my family reunion, and then she died in October. And at June, my cousin had given myself and my other cousin, we both were sharing the platform that day, a journal, and it was a thank you journal or thankful journal, whatever. And I was the counselor who did not like journaling, but I would pretty much give it to all my clients. I'm gonna be honest. That's me. Because it is really effective. It actually is. And it makes you kind of get out yourself. But I also knew that if I wrote it down, that meant it was real. I knew it was real, but writing it down actually like, no, this really did happen. Like I'm actually writing what's inside of me and sometimes what I didn't even want to say or was too afraid to say. And so I committed to writing for a year. And then maybe last year, because I'm in the process of I'm finishing my book like for real this time. And so I looked at it to try to see what happened. And it was so much that happened in that year that I completely forgot about things that God had healed me from. Like I had pain, I'm talking about physical pain, like all these different things I completely forgot about. And I was just like, wow, yeah, journaling really does bring to light some things that can help you through your process. And some of those things, can be transferred into songwriting. While other things are helping me through my process as I continue to heal. I do think that just getting a pen, or especially your favorite pen. I love a good pen. It's something about a great pen.
I
Get a
agree.
pen and get some paper and then just write. Like one of the things you're taught, because I was a speech and drama major. And so we did a lot of like English-based classes or whatever. And I always kind of love that is to brainstorm. The power of brainstorming. So even if you don't know what to say, write something. Say, I don't know what to say. And then start writing even the prayer. Like, God, show me what it is that you want me to say through this process. What am I supposed to learning? Start asking those questions. Or
Right.
another thing is asking yourself how you really feel about whatever it was that happened to you. And that's like what happened with the excerpt I shared with you a week ago. Like, I was just like, I need to get this out. Like all this stuff has been inside of me, but I could be helping so many other people if I just am not afraid of even the blocks. Because the blocks a lot of times are fear. And for Christians, the blocks are sometimes are Satan because he don't want you to get it out. The blocks sometimes are, the trauma, the mental health stuff, but oh my gosh, what's on the other side of this? If I let this out, then what happens?
Right.
So.
Right. And I think for me, as someone who experiences anxiety in a way that impacts my day to day functioning, that loss of control, because even like was talking to my therapist and she's like, just do a brain dump. But even in the process of supposedly writing down like just whatever is in my brain, I'm like, does that sound stupid? No, that sounds stupid. Or does that sorry, we're not supposed to use the word stupid anymore. But does that sound weird? Does that have like, I overthink in the process of overthinking, like I don't get to optimize how helpful it can be because I'm trying to impress myself because I'm the only person who's going to see it. I'm trying to impress myself. Well, how does it look? Or where do I start? And so, I think that is one of the things that you said about just, just starting. Just even if you just say, I don't know what I'm supposed to be writing here. For me, one of the things I used to tell my students when I was in the classroom is scribble, but it helped me as an adult because maybe words were too much. Maybe I was fixated too much on like what words to write down, but just even being able to scribble or color, because for me that, I don't know what it is, I was much less worried about control, worried about, ooh, I don't know if this sounds right or whatever the case may be. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I know that you said sometimes like a random melody or beat will come to your head. What about us budding songwriters that don't have melodies to come to our head? Like that's how Brandon operates. He'll be like, Brandon will be walking around the house beatboxing with his mouth. You just be like, yo, like, but a melody never comes to my head. It's a melody that I've heard that might come to my head, but I never make up a melody. So for us who want to be songwriters, who want to use the power of songwriting to help us with our mental wellness, but we don't necessarily, get a melody in our head, or, I'm so busy like fixating on finding a word that rhymes with Sunday, because, in your mind, you're like, oh, the word's got to rhyme, like, what would you say to us, me?
So no, first of all, they don't have to rhyme.
Okay. All right.
And actually if you think about like some of the greatest poets, the deepest ones, like don't ask me calling by off the top of my head, but just all the poems that I used to read, some of them were the ones that didn't rhyme, the ones that actually made me think about whatever it is, you know what I'm saying, that it was that they were trying to portray, that it was like an abstract painting, but on paper. So I think that for those of you, or like Ashely, who say they don't hear a melody, again, just right. Like a lot of us do have the ability to rhyme, you know, and I think that is nothing wrong with, I have a lot of poems that rhyme too. I think that if you find out what it is that you are really trying to say first, so be honest kind of with yourself. And then once you know that, you can do like the brainstorming and talk about the words and stuff. One of the things that was important to me when I was specifically writing Christian songs was making sure that whatever I was saying actually lined up with the word. I don't want to say something because it sounds good or because it rhymes, because me doing that, and people get mad at me when I'm gonna use this example. It says the weapons. No, it says what is the song about? The one that endured to the end. The lyrics, the race is not given to the swift or the strong. It says, but time and chance happens to them all. It has they two completely different scriptures, have nothing to do with one another. One is in the Old Testament, one's in the New Testament. And there's a lot of people walking around and saying, now, granted, in life, that may actually be the case. You keep on running, you keep on doing the right thing, but studies show thyself approved. Because what you're telling people is not what the scripture said. And we all know that a lot of people are not sitting around reading the Bible every day, especially those that, you know, are not the ministers or not the study. You know, it's just, you know, so you're causing somebody to think that this is really scripture when it really isn't. And so that was really important to me. And I've had ministers and pastors and, you know, even some other vocalists get upset about that. But be true to whatever it is you're saying. You know, I hate to look at a movie and the scripture that they quote is not the script. Why didn't you just quote one that was in the Bible? The King James is open for everybody. So to me, I translate that into my music. So, you know, you have to kind of know what's important to you and what you're trying to get out. And then I'm my worst critic too, but don't be your worst critic. It doesn't matter. It's your song, your words, how you feel about whatever it is that you're trying to express. And it's okay.
So what you're saying is, if I'm not trying to get like a record deal, I don't need to be worried about too much how I sound. Absolutely. That's what you're saying, right? Way you're putting it.
I mean, you want to see how you sound and what you write could be two different things, Ashely.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't mean like how I sound when like I sing. I mean like the words. I'm not worried about how I sound because I'm not recording nothing I sing.
I was not talking about your singing. I just want to clarify what it is that you were asking me.
Oh yeah.
I was like, Jesus says it's a sweet sound in his ear. For most musicians and singers, it might not be, but I'm not going to, you know.
Jesus is so gracious. Isn't the Lord kind? The Lord is kind. The Lord is kind. He'll be like, if we said no.
I have my moments too.
I mean, just saying. That's why Jesus is Lord and I'm not, because I'll be like, see, no, you sis, you know, you are really good with, you know, making sure that things are in order. So you stay up in that administrative gift right in there. And, you know, we're going to let the psalmist and the Levite, we're going to let them do that. So yeah, like, but I think also the songwriting process can also teach us a lot about, you know, how we manage our emotions, right? And even helping us to get past, you know, mental barriers and mental boundaries in order to really release what's in us. Because you don't have to be dealing with heavy trauma per se,
right,
in order to need to process things. But the thing is, like, we have this beautiful tool in our toolkit that God has provided us to help us kind of process through. We look at what we know is the book of Psalms, right? Mm-hmm. Many of those are considered to be songs, actual songs, like actual songs. But if you read through them, there is the writer is processing. Asaph was, you know, he's one of my faves, you know, like he did a lot of processing and lamenting. He was like, oh, Lord, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I know that you are higher than the heavens, but this doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know, like he really like engages the Lord through songwriting. And so I think that you know, kind of talking about this as a tool to help us, one, to be able to process, two, to be able to kind of strengthen our resolve to be able to um, handle things in a way that is more emotionally mature, right? It gets us to a point where we're able to kind of regulate our emotions. We're able to really be honest with ourselves about how things are it affecting us and impacting us.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, it's a fun way. Like, so say you do write a song, you can go and find a beat on YouTube, and you know you could be. One of my favorite shows is Insecure, right? And Issa Rae, her thing is she be in the bathroom rapping to herself, right, in the mirror.
Absolutely.
And I used to laugh so hard at that because that is me. I'm Issa Rae. Like, I may not write down the lyrics, but I will make up a song and be singing it to myself. And so
Well, then
people
you have
laugh
a
at the
melody.
yeah, it don't make no sense. So as long as melodies can like be nonsensical, then that's fine. But like I used to laugh so hard at that, but that's actually something that could be very, very helpful.
Mhm.
Of course, you don't have like a whole camera crew in there with you, so you can feel a little bit more at home at being able to do something like that. So last, I want to ask about your latest project. I think was released was 2019. Depend.
Yes.
So that was released after your mother passed. And so I'm gonna share it so they can see on your website. But that was released after your mother's passing, and as you've been, you know, still on this journey to healing, can you give us a little bit of insight on that project, and you know what you would like for us to know about it, basically?
Sure. So the funny thing about this one, my mom, she like I guess maybe a year and a half before she died, she was just like, Lisa, you don't really sing anymore. Like I used to work mobile crisis, and I think although I liked the job, I just didn't know that I was dealing with as much trauma as I actually ended up dealing with. And so it really didn't help with the place that I was in my life. And so because we were always working and it was shift work, I also didn't get to sing a lot. And I, like I said earlier, I need that balance. Like I need to be able to be creative just as much as I need to be able to help people. So the two together make Lisa a better person. When I'm doing one without the other, whether it's singing, poetry, or writing, I have to be doing some of those with it. And so a lot of those songs were written 10 years prior and recorded 10 years prior to me actually releasing it. And it took my mom's death for me to say, you know what? I need to get back out there. I need to do something. And so many rules have changed with copyright laws and all this other stuff, whatever. But I was grateful that I was able to get it out. You know, depending on God, trusting in God, that's the main process or theme of that CD. I couldn't be anything without him. And even though I have messed up royally and sinned and come back, and healing has been an up and down thing for me. I think the more earnest that I'm about what I'm going through, whether it's when I'm singing or writing or speaking, it brings me to a better place, a healing place. And music can be so cathartic. It can be so therapeutic. It can be so calming. It can be like your best friend when you're crying. You know what I mean? Just like it's a way to connect. And so I think either CD, one is more spoken word than the other, and it's something for everybody. I love jazz. I love go-go. So I have go-go tracks on there. You can't be from the DC area and not have go-go.
I mean, the nation's capital. Let's
Right.
represent.
Right. You can't live nowhere close to the
Nowhere
DMV and
close.
not have any go-go. And so both CDs have go-go songs. And then, I even have a little foot stomping song, Jesus is More, on there. So it's a little bit of something for everybody. I will share this. When my mom was in the hospital, I was talking to one of my friends, Sonia, and we would share, like we would play different songs, like Waymaker. every single day. And I had never heard the song because I don't really listen to the radio a lot. Like I listen
Me
to
neither.
CDs. And so my friend Tamika had, mentioned that song. We just had this whole like playlist. People were sending me different songs and I created a playlist, and I asked my family members to share it with my mom too every day. Because, we were believing, God for her to heal, like a wake up heal, but God had a different way of healing. Because I do believe the ultimate healing comes through death too, but that's a whole different story. Not taking your life specifically. I'm not encouraging anybody to do that. I just want to make sure that I make that clear. But that when you're one of his and you're able to go back and be reunited with him. And so that's the way that he did it. But one day my friend Sonia Marie was like, well, did you play any of your music? I never even thought about it, Ashely. And when I tell you, my mom, she wasn't able to show facial expressions, like anything. It was just like, and if you knew her, which you did, she was a bubbly, joyful person. So to not have any of that and just be stone faced and not be able to squeeze your hand, talk, anything, it was a really hard thing for me. And that one day I did play some of my songs, and it was almost like it wasn't life, but you could tell she recognized it, and it touched me so much that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I forget sometimes that I have the same thing that these other people have, and she enjoyed my music. She was my biggest supporter, and so music can touch the soul. They say it's a universal language. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so
yes.
You don't have to know the words. They don't have to be eloquent in nature. But to know that, somebody that didn't have any activity, of their limbs at the time and very little brain function at that, still had some type of recognition to music that her daughter wrote. It touched my heart. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
yeah. I mean, no, but it's a couple of things there. One, I feel like this is, kind of immensely encouraging because it's not like you wrote the music and then boom, released it. There's like a theme with all of your projects where it's like, oh, this was wrote, this time, and then 10 years later, it's kind of like SpongeBob SquarePants, like 10 years later, right? But that is encouraging, right? Because I have not, I guess, officially announced it, but I'm finally publishing the children's book that I wrote 2 years ago. So it'll be on pre-sale in July. But I had sat on that and I felt so terrible. Like, I had wrote a whole book, got illustrations on it, everything, just sitting on it. And so someone needs to know that, like, whatever you may be sitting on, whatever it is that you might, have in your heart that you're supposed to release, it's never too late to do that. So that's one thing. Yes, I appreciate that. Two, and I'm going to share this comment by Janice Wilson, who's joining us today. She said music is the most powerful art form, and it really, really, truly is. One of the things I remember about my grandmother, my mom's mom, my maternal grandmother, she passed away. She had dementia before she passed, and she had gotten to a point where she really wasn't recognizing anybody, or if she saw somebody else. So, for instance, she saw my father, she would call my father my grandfather's name. And like my father wasn't even her son, that was her son-in-law. So like she was making connections, but they weren't the correct connections. When she saw me, it was just a blank stare, like, oh girl, I don't know who you are. But when Dad would sing a hymn, and my grandmother was Catholic, but she came up in like the Black Catholic Church in DC. So like there could be some similarities, right? Depending on what you talked about or what you were, thinking about, considering. But my dad would sing a hymn, and my grandmother's face would change. It would go from like this kind of lost look to like I recognize this, and she would even sing along sometimes. And then my dad would say the Lord's Prayer, and she would recite it along with. I mean, she couldn't remember anything else, but she could remember songs, specifically like spiritual songs that songs that might have been taught to her as she was a child. And so you're absolutely correct. And Janice is as well. Like music is so powerful. It helps with our, like, there's research out here that talks about how it helps with our cognitive abilities. It helps us to be able to release anxiety, right? It helps us to be able to sleep, right? That's why we put on lullabies for children, right? Because scientifically, there are certain chords right? And I'm not a music person, so correct me if I'm not using the right terminology. There's certain chords and like musical things that have been known to help the brain literally to relax.
We would play classical even in the classroom because it would help children calm down
Exactly.
while they were working.
When I was teaching pre-K, I hit that little classical for kids. I mean, they be out, and I enjoyed it. I had to be careful though, because I'll be out too.
It's very soothing.
But then there are I think they're called aerial beats that you can look up on YouTube that help with your anxiety. They're music like waveforms or whatever they're called, that literally help the brain to like release tension and anxiety. And so I think that we don't really tap into quite enough the healing power of music. But I am so glad that you came on with me tonight to talk about how music has helped you in your journey for healing, and just in general, like it's something that you enjoy to do. Sounds like you really, really enjoy writing music. So I'm about to get you to write a song for me. For now, I'm kidding.
You never know.
But before we get off, I do want to share with our viewers your website, because I want people to know of the work that you are doing. So this is Lisa's website. See, welcome to the website of Lisa Gilliam. These are all the things that she does. She's a vocal, songwriter, speaker, writer, poet, and mental health advocate. Please, please, please don't miss any of those. All right. And so this is LisaLGilliam.com. So you can come to this website. You can get access to her music and spoken word. I have it. It's on, I know it's on Apple Music. Tell me out, Lisa. What else is it on?
Amazon. Pretty much anywhere where you can get music, but you can go to my site directly. And I have like about 47 of the hard copies of the pen. But if you order them that way and I mail it to you, you automatically get the MP3. Past the Present and the single God Delivered Me are only MP3s right now.
Perfect. I also want to highlight that you can purchase One Singing Lady merchandise. Yes. So you can not only get her music, but if you like to sing, we've got some Sing Right Speak merchandise. You got some One Singing Lady merchandise, and you also have some The Stigma Breakers Collective merchandise. And then if you want to book Lisa to sing, to speak, to educate, you are able to come to this lovely booking form and fill out all of the information, and she will get back to you as soon as possible. So just want to make sure that the folks know.
Thank you,
that
Ashely.
You have, and I'm gonna let me. So make sure that the folks know that they can visit your website to get more information about you and to get more information about the services that you offer. So as we kind of close out this break room chat, what would you say is next as far as music or songwriting for Lisa Gilliam? Are there any ways that you're planning to grow that particular part of your life? Are you kind of like, kind of leaning toward moving in a different direction? Kind of help us out. What do you think?
I think that I don't really have a choice. I feel like if God is giving you a gift, then you really need to do what the gift is. You know what I mean? And so he's gifted me to be able to sing. And I've seen, it's nothing like seeing people in the audience be touched by something that you were singing or writing or speaking. And so I definitely plan on singing more. I'm actually putting some songs and some poems in my book. And so just to have another way of outlet. And then I've been getting a lot of engagements. When I speak, oftentimes I'm asked to sing, as well. And so that's been cool to be able to not just do one thing, but to kind of bring all the gifts and talents at the same time. So I'm open to whatever God has as I continue to heal. The one thing that I've learned is I can't be ashamed of where I've been or what I've done or who I am. I have to keep on going through the process. So if you have a problem with it, that's your problem. But I'm going to continue to do what God has called me to do. And he's called me to do these things regardless of, he already knew I was going to do them. He already knew who I would be, what, mistakes I would make, the trauma I would experience. And obviously he saw something in me to still birth these gifts and talents in me. They're not mine. I know that this all belongs to him. And so I'm learning to let go and let God even more. You know what I mean? That song was on my heart today. Like I was, listening to something. And I was just like, oh, I remember when I sang that. I'm going back to karaoke too. Like I'm fully vaccinated. So slowly but surely. And that's it's a release for me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So we should go again. We should go again. Because you did go with me one time.
Yes. Now, I love to go to the karaoke. I don't know if y'all going to get me up on the mic because I have this complex because I can't sing as good as Brandon. I don't want to sing. No. So the Lord got to work on me with that. But I mean, so just pray for me because I be wanting to sound like Brandon and God be like, no. And so now I'll be like, God, I don't want to sing.
No, you just got to sing. Just sing. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be good, but I will warn you, my friends can really sing. And so.
And see, that's what I'm saying. You got me going.
But you don't have to sing though. You don't have to sing well at all.
But to say you got me going behind Mariah Carey, and I'm gonna be like,
my friends say that it's like a concert. They're like, Lisa, it's at my birthday parties. I've had a few karaoke parties. They're like, Lisa, that was a concert. Like we didn't come for a concert. We come to and we encourage you. So it doesn't matter. Forget the concert. So yes, you get some free good talent, but you get to also sing too.
That's right. Well, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on, having this chat with me, talk about your musical ability, your gift that God has given to you, and to help us kind of think about like ways in which we can use, even if it's something that we don't feel like we can offer to the world, we can offer that gift to ourselves, right? Like I don't have to sing in front of everybody else, but if singing helps me to feel better, I can do that. Absolutely. By myself.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for encouraging us.
Thanks for having me.
I can't wait for us to talk some more about this, and can't wait for that book.
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
All right. You see me,
Yep. You supposed to ask me. You got one to ask me anyway.
This is me asking.
Yeah, I'm writing. I was supposed to write earlier today, but I went to go work out first. But I'm writing today. Y'all have my word.
Okay. All right. So before we leave, I just have to give a shout out to me and Lisa. Totally did not plan this.
No,
but I mean, like great minds think alike. So we are sporting our Mastering My Matters shirt. And so I'm so excited. This was the first Mastering My Matters shirt design, and now it's available on the website in different colors. And so, yay! So thank you, Lisa, for supporting. So she bought it.
Yes, I did. I asked for
it. She did. She was the one that pushed me to get it on the website. She was like, girl, you got all this other stuff, which is cute, but I want the Mastering My Matters shirt, like the original one. So she was the one that pushed me to do it. So thank you. And she also bought it because we believe in supporting our friends, not just asking for free things, right?
Absolutely.
And so you can always visit Mastering My Matters now in order to purchase something.
Yes.
If you want to be able to have your mental wellness gear.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Lisa. I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Fred, my friend Fred from BTS. My village mamas, LaRon Burton. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Janice. I think I saw Karen Young was on earlier. I saw Paige Lester was on earlier. Thank you guys for joining us. And we will be having our next break room chat in July. Keep looking at our page. I will be announcing the date soon because I'm in school now and my calendar's just all jacked up. The date will be coming soon. Thank you guys for joining. Please, it's not too late. Share this to your page so people can be able to watch the replay.
Yes. Love you guys. Join, but like me, share me. I want to connect with y'all too. So please do that too. And I shared it on my pages, Ashely.
What is it, Lisa L. Gilliam?
One Singing Lady, and on One Singing Lady on Facebook, on Instagram. The number one Singing Lady.
Yes. So please follow One Singing Lady on Facebook and Instagram. I'm about to put it in the chat. And also your YouTube channel, right? It's by the same name.
But that's spelled out
Oh.
ONESINGINGLADY. And that's where we are on every first Wednesday. So we'll see y'all there.
Yes, next Wednesday we're on Daunting Lady on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank
Love you guys. See y'all soon.
Bye.